What if every single scientist had their own dedicated team of AI research assistants, ready to test out any idea, no matter how wild? Well, that's the big promise behind a new framework called Agent Laboratory. And honestly, it could completely change the pace of scientific discovery.
So let's dive in and see how this thing actually works.
To really get why this is such a big deal, just think about this for a second. How many brilliant, world-changing ideas have died on a whiteboard? How many potential breakthroughs are just sitting there, scribbled in a notebook, because a researcher just didn't have the time, the funding, or the staff to chase it down? And that right there is the core problem. Science has a massive bottleneck. The journey from a simple concept to a fully fledged research paper, it's incredibly long, it's expensive, and it's a huge amount of work. Researchers have to pick and choose what they work on, and because of that, so many fantastic ideas just get left behind. It slows down the pace of innovation for all of us. So the big question is, how do we break through that bottleneck? Well, this is where Agent Laboratory comes in. And look, the key thing to get right away is that this isn't about replacing human scientists. Not at all. It's about empowering them with a super powerful new kind of assistant. At its heart, Agent Laboratory is an AI framework where a whole team of specialized AI agents work together. A human researcher comes in with the initial idea, and this AI team helps run with it, all the way from doing the background research to writing the code and spitting out a final paper. And here's the team. You've got the PhD agent, who basically hits the books, scouring archives for all the relevant papers. Then there's the postdoc agent, who helps map out the research plan and make sense of the data. The ML engineer is your coder, writing, testing, and tweaking the code. And finally, the professor agent pulls everything together into a structured reports. It's like having an entire research department in a box. Okay, so you've met the team, but how do they actually, get the job done? The whole thing follows a really clear three-phase workflow that takes a project from that first spark of an idea to a finished paper. First up is the literature review. This is where the PhD agent digs up and summarizes all the existing research. Next, you move into the experimentation phase. The team works together to design a study and then uses a special tool called MLE Solver to just autonomously write and run all the necessary code. And finally, in phase 3, the professor agent takes all those juicy findings and uses another tool, Paper Solver, to generate the final report. It's a really slick pipeline.
Now, that all sounds great in theory, right? But the real question is, does it actually work? Well, the researchers put it to the test, and this is where the results get really, really interesting.
Okay, first let's talk money. The average price to generate a complete research paper from scratch, using the GPT-4a model, was just $2.33. $2. That's an 84% cost reduction compared to older methods. That just completely lowers the financial barrier for exploring new ideas.
But cheaper doesn't always mean better. When human reviewers looked at papers generated by different AI models, they found something fascinating. A model called O1 Preview was rated the most useful overall. But a smaller, faster model, O1 Mini, actually produced experiments with the highest quality. It just goes to show you that the best AI for the job really depends on what you're trying to do.
But here's the kicker, a real reality check. The AI agents also reviewed their own work, and they consistently gave themselves way higher scores than the human experts did. The AI's average score for its own work was 6.1 out of 10. The human score for that same work, 3.8. It's a huge gap, and it proves that human judgment and oversight are still absolutely essential. And this slide right here proves that exact point. The researchers tested a co-pilot mode, where a human steps in and gives feedback at each stage of the process. And look what happened. The quality jumped significantly. The average score went from that 3.8 in fully autonomous mode all the way up to nearly 4.4 with a human in the loop. It turns out the human expert is the secret sauce. In fact, you don't even have to take my word for it. The paper's own conclusion says it all, loud and clear. Human involvement, providing feedback at each stage, significantly improves the overall quality of research. So this isn't about AI taking over. It's about a powerful new partnership between human creativity and machine execution. All right, so let's zoom out. What does a tool like this really mean for the bigger picture? Let's take a look at what this could do for the future of scientific discovery itself.
The ultimate vision here is to completely change what a scientist spends their day doing by automating all the tedious, low-level stuff, the coding, the report formatting, the grunt work. Agent Laboratory wants to free up researchers to do what they do best, thinking, asking huge questions, and coming up with those brilliant, creative ideas in the first place.
But of course, with this kind of power comes a lot of responsibility. The creators are very clear about the ethical challenges. There's a real risk of producing bad or even misleading science, of amplifying biases in the data, or even someone misusing it for harmful purposes. That's why putting up guardrails, like being totally transparent about AI's involvement, is going to be so critical as these tools get better.
And all of this leads to one final, just incredible question. If we can successfully offload all the grunt work to AI, what new frontiers will the human mind be free to explore? What incredible discoveries are waiting for us just beyond our current bottlenecks? That, right there, is the truly exciting part.